Well, hi, Walid. Thank you for joining me here in Entrée Capital's Founder Spotlight series, where we highlight some of the inspiring founders in our portfolio and invite them to share some of the lessons that they've learned along the way. So it seems like you are ready to get started.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to this.
Amazing. Awesome. So let's first start with the super basics. Tell me in a sentence, what do you offer and to whom do you offer it?
So Hala is building the region's or the Middle East first kind of insurance that's digital but has a human touch. We want to help you buy car insurance, home insurance, all kinds of insurance within 3 minutes, and we want to help you file the claims and sort them out in less than a day.
Okay, there you go. Insurtech. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's an insurtech. Exactly. I don't like what we were saying is we don't want to make you love insurance, but we want to make you, hopefully by the time if we IPO, tolerate insurance, then we're happy with that. That's a goal. That's a good goal.
I think that is a fantastic goal. I mean, and you're still in the beginning stages here, but it couldn't have been easy even to get to where you are right now. So first off, if you could just kind of say what stage are you in right now? How long have you been building Hala? And then if you can also tell us a little bit about what were some of those stumbling blocks, like what are some of the tough things that you had to deal with in the beginning, which might even still be now?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we started as a B2B startup called Addenda. At the time, we were servicing insurance companies. We wanted to digitize their back-end software and allow them to reconcile payments with each other, which is the least sexy offering, in my opinion. We were thinking, what am I doing here servicing such an old school, sleepy industry when in fact I could compete with them? So with COVID came a wave of digitization in the B2C element. And we're thinking, okay, we've been operating like management consultants the past few years, looking at every single kind of segment and line of business within incumbent old insurance institutions. How can I fix that? We realized that customers strictly care about experience. It doesn't matter if it's digital or not. What they want is, I want to change my address and I don't want to go through 12 different forms, 15 phone calls, you asking me the same question 12 times. I just want to tell you, my address changed. So it's things like that that are so basic and such low-hanging fruits that we considered our moat is going to be the digital capabilities, as well as having that human touch that I'm not against you, I'm on your side. A lot of problems that we faced at the beginning was finding a USP back when we were B2B. So we built such an amazing in-depth product, but it turned out to be more of a solution looking for a problem. The problem at the beginning when insurance companies weren't paying each other and we suggested, use our blockchain to do so, it wasn't a technological problem. They didn't want transparency. They weren't paying each other because they don't have money. So that was the issue at the time. And it's very difficult selling it to a claims department, for example, because your solution effectively removes the people from there. So how do you sell it to that department within a company and convince them that, no, you'll be using this is not going to replace you? Once we realized that we're fighting a losing battle here with the regulator not on your side, we decided, listen, we're going to scrap that and attack head on. We're going to compete with insurance companies.
So it seems like initially your problem was kind of fitting within that market that already existed. And you kind of realized, okay, well, let's, totally shift that. And in order to find product market fit, it seems like you built an entire new offering. So can you even go into that a little bit more, touch on maybe either other elements of that? Of how did you figure that out? How did you hone your product to be exactly where you needed to be within that space? How did you come to that conclusion, other than the fact that, you kind of spoke to enough people that said no?
Look, my personal experience, buying car insurance is horrible here. And I realized that filing an insurance claim is not a pleasant experience either. Look, I'm never going to make it a pleasant experience. When someone has a car accident, they're not going to go, raving and laughing and jumping. Exactly. What I thought I would do is, when you have those most difficult times, I'm going to be there as best as I can for you. And I also want to make sure that during the customer purchasing journey, why don't I gamify it? Why don't I digitize it to be as easy as buying food from like Delivery Hero or Uber Eats or whatnot? And we realized, look, nobody else is thinking about this. They're just concerned with their bottom lines. Can I sell the cheapest policy and then disappear? 12 months later, my CRM pings, yo, this guy needs to renew his car insurance. Let's spam him to no end with phone calls and whatnot. We as individuals considered it, not as insurance professionals. So my background is in insurance. I forgot to talk about myself and I just jumped straight into the thing. But my background is in insurance and I approached this with a completely non-insurance angle. How can I make financial services for millennials, Gen Z, and Gen X, mainly our target audience, different than the experience they hate to go through today? That's what I wanted to think about. But
so
our options, like you asked, is mainly first and foremost car insurance is what we started with, but now we've moved towards home insurance with a twist wherein you can customize it. You can tailor make your own policy. You want to cover your guitar, you want to cover your phone, you want to cover your jewelry, you want to focus on worldwide cover when you travel. One of the coolest things in the UAE, at least with our policy, is we have accidental damage cover. So for example, in the US and in many parts of Europe, it's predominantly for vandalism, theft, fire, and water leakage. So theft doesn't really happen here. To substitute with that, we're like, if you accidentally break your phone, we might take care of it. Of course, we've got to be careful. You don't want to advertise break your phone as your value proposition.
It's very interesting how regional specific this is, how you really understood. And I think this goes back to that earlier question. You really understood your market. You really understood the people that you're trying to cater to and what they need from your product. So it's very interesting to see that kind of shift. What has surprised you? Because it seems like you have it all down pat. You know what you're doing. You knew how to shift when you needed to shift. You know how to pivot when you needed to pivot. What has surprised you when building your business? What's something you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming?
I'll be very frank with you. I mean, we've become better at pivoting now, and we've become better at identifying a product market fit. At the beginning, what surprised us was we would have assumptions of what the customer actually wants, and we would have assumptions of what the best thing to deliver is. It's not always true. Just because you think you know what the customer wants, or just because you think this is a cool added service, isn't really the case. Case in point, we had a rewards program at the very beginning where as you drive safe, you get points, the points you can spend on free pizzas, hotel accommodations, etc., etc., etc. Very few people used it. It could be because at the time our UI UX was not good enough, or maybe we didn't advertise it well enough. But we've just realized that there comes a certain point for insurance where don't gamify it, don't make it more appealing, just make it cheap, make me get over with it and go from there. That was the surprise. It shouldn't have been a surprise, but that was the surprise that we had. And from there, we just focused on, listen, I don't know if you're familiar with the term speed running in video games, which means how fast you can finish a level in a video game. So at the office right now, the team is constantly speed running our quotation process. How fast can I go through the quote process and get, this is how much your car insurance policy will cost. Day in, day out, the most important thing for us is how fast can a guy or a girl come and buy their policy and go back to what they're doing.
It's amazing. Now, you said you were in insurance before this. So this is your first venture? This is your first move into the entrepreneurial world?
Basically, it's interesting. Going a bit way back to school and university, I studied civil engineering. I despised it, but my dad was a civil engineer. My brother, my aunts, my mom, my entire family is effectively a construction company. As soon as I graduated, I left and went accidentally into insurance. Nobody grows up and thinks they want to go into insurance, but throughout those years, whether in university and elsewhere, I constantly wanted to create new things simply to escape civil engineering. So in Jordan, I started my own magazine, which failed after some time. We had, I don't know if you're familiar with Vice in the US. We had something very similar. At one point, we were 25 people. Other than that, but it was all voluntary. So I didn't really pay the guys, but I didn't get paid myself. But the idea of always starting something, failing, starting something and failing upwards, I guess. The other thing we did during university as well was when I first bought cryptocurrency in 2012, I started something called Crypto Arabia, another cryptocurrency magazine. We had like 5 articles and then we said, listen, nobody wants to read about this right now in the Middle East. Which is a shame. I think it could have picked up. But yeah, like I said, it's a constant kind of testing the market, going as fast as I can into these ideas. And when they don't work, kind of detouring into something that might work. So it's always like trying to unlock a cage from the inside.
For where you actually got right now, what would you say is the best advice that you've ever gotten? It might have been in the past, it might have been recently, something that you're like, that clicked.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the best advice came from Avi from Entrée Capital, who was like tough love. We were talking about a potential rebrand at the very beginning. And, we like the colors. My brother and I like the colors. Karim is the co-founder. And we were showing off with it. And he's like, listen, these colors potentially don't match. Have you tried testing these colors with others? And we're like, not really. At the time, we really liked what we were showing him. He's like, listen, just because you really like something so much doesn't mean that it's what the masses might want. You got to look into the target audience you have. You got to look into data. Make sure that all of your approaches are always data driven. And when that happened, it kind of opened up. You're passionate about your pet project, whether it's my cryptocurrency magazine or my Vice-like magazine back in Jordan. But if there's a poor product market fit, you can't just keep trying to peg a square into a circle. Or I don't know how that sentence is said in the US, but I think you know what I mean.
I do. So, how did you, I guess, what advice would you give to founders to, looking back at your experience that you did have all of these I guess, smaller things that you love, these passion project of yours, and now you have something that's actually a business. What advice would you give to founders and aspiring founders of how to turn, I guess, those passion projects that they have, or even choose to not turn those passion projects they have into businesses? What advice would you give them? Because I think for me also as an aspiring entrepreneur, that's something that I question all the time. Is this something that I should turn to a business? Is this a passion project? What advice would you give on that?
That's a perfect question, and something I think about all the time with my brother, actually, out of all people. So avoid having an echo chamber where it's just you, yourself, and assuming your ideas are right, wherein you're Googling them or going through a certain path. If there's nobody to disagree with you, whether it's, again, Avi or my brother who constantly disagrees with me, we're very different people. I think picking the right co-founder is incredibly important. Being a single founder at a young age may be difficult. If you're a serial entrepreneur, go all for it. I'm not. So picking someone who's my brother in my case was just the right fit because we complement each other. And I guess together in a weird way, we evolve into the perfect single CEO. And that really worked out for us. Kareem disagrees with me in the most passionate and logical ways possible. And he's really avoided certain scenarios where I was impulsively wanting to do some things like, no, analytically, this doesn't make sense. I think you should always look for a co-founder for your business. If you lack let's assume you have the industry experience in a medical startup, for example, and that's what you want to go for. Look for someone who may be out of that industry, but has a lot of analytical experience to start with, or experience in operations, or experience in tech. One of you has to be technical, and the other person has to be the quote unquote sales, passionate, cult leadership character, I guess.
That's great. So you're sticking on the space of advice. Any books or podcasts or movies that you'd recommend to those watching this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about books. 0 to 1, which I know everybody recommends, but is really has a very, very special place in my heart. There's also, I think it's called Never Split the Difference. It's a book about, have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I haven't read it.
And the most important out of all of these books for fundraising, I suppose, is called Venture Deals, which is like the Bible of fundraising. There's a PDF available online for free. Just Google it, you can find it. But basically, the book is not expensive. If you get that book, it explains from a VC's perspective how to negotiate with VCs and what to say and what not to say. What are safe agreements? What are convertible notes? How does a discount work? How does a valuation cap work? What does it mean? And a lot of first-time founders don't know these things, and they could come across predatory VCs. Not every VC is kind. Not every VC is Entrée Capital. Not every VC, works in these quick, founder-friendly styles. So it could ruin the entire future of a company just to have one mistake where you don't find the right partner. I think Venture Deals would probably be the #1 book I would recommend.
So, you quickly mentioned it in your last answer about, not every firm is like as nice as Entrée. But tell me a little bit more about why Entrée. Why did you choose Entrée? Why did we choose you? Tell us.
In a very brief sentence, Entrée picked us. Avi was walking around startups in Abu Dhabi, and he wanted to see what the ecosystem was like. We were lucky that he was the first startup to walk against. He had a very important meeting he went to, and then came back as like, you guys have 5 minutes, pitch to me. We pitched. He said, I love the idea. Let's consider putting in 500K. And from there, I saw it's someone who decides on the spot, believes in founders. And since then, we're constantly meeting with Avi and some of the other people from Entrée Capital. I don't only consider him to be an investor because there's a lot of mentorship that comes in from there. A lot of the choices in terms of the brand, a lot of the choices in terms of the financial elements, how to negotiate with him. It's like, you don't want to say this to me, try again, say this, and it's things like that that I found very, very, very impressive. This is an investor who actually cares about the craft and genuinely enjoys going to work every day.
That's amazing. Any last things you want to add before you wrap it up for your PCR test?
Yeah, so basically, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting me. This is an amazing opportunity. Whenever I get on these calls, I just reflect on 2-3 years ago when it was just me and an idea with my brother, and how it all changed. Now there's 26 people in the company, and I just love what I'm doing. I think it's not a piece of advice, but rather, if you have any kind of an inkling towards entrepreneurial desires, please, now's the time to follow them. And I'm happy for anybody who's listening to this call to contact me. Faye, you can share my contact details. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions that anybody might have.
Amazing. Beautiful. Well, what a great place to end. And thank you so much for joining me on this. And I'll be in touch soon.
Pleasure is mine. Take care.